Franz Bieberkopf is penniless and unemployed after his boyfriend Klaus, a carnival owner, is arrested, with a hunch that he will win the lottery, while he is picked up by an older man, Max, an antique art dealer. Franz buys a bundle of lottery tickets, one of which is a winner. Franz is belittled by Max's friend, Eugen. However, when Eugen learns of Franz's wealth, he changes his attitude and begins a manipulative affair with Franz, which leads to tragedy. This is Rainer Werner Fassbinder's Fox and His Friends, a title referring to Franz's sideshow act as Fox the Talking Head, pretending to be a severed head who will answer the questions of willing participants, which stars Rainer Werner Fassbinder himself as Franz Bieberkopf. Fox and His Friends depicts the abusive manipulation of a vulnerable young man, Franz is not the brightest spark, and how a trusting spirit can become the target of exploitation. In this case, Eugen's manipulation of Franz leads to bleeding him dry of all his lottery earnings, gaslighting Franz into irreversible actions that can only provide negative consequences. The depiction of abuse, while not physical, is still a form of abuse. The representation of a cis-gay relationship at the centre of this toxicity, reflecting the additional obstacles that gay men can experience in their struggles to find love, taking them at a moment of romantic vulnerability and pushing them into something irreparable, from finding intimacy in unconventional places to having sexual liaisons remain discreet in locations where queerness is criminalised. Fox and His Friends' portrayal of a challenging relationship goes the extra mile to portray many queer challenges. Rainer Werner Fassbinder's direction within Fox and His Friends presents a realist and sometimes surprisingly humorous approach that has gone on to influence filmmakers as varied as Pedro Almodovar and Todd Haynes. The protagonist, Franz, is not the brightest bulb. He acquires a great amount of wealth, but comes from a humble background. He is kind-natured, yet unfortunately naive, which leads to him being targeted by the opportunist Eugen, in need of financial assistance in keeping his father's bookbinding business afloat, but also motivated by a callous greed that will benefit only himself and his lover Philip. The ways Eugen manipulates Franz is by belittling him for his personality and lack of education, from showing off his own ability to speak French while ordering a meal, his way of scolding Franz when he causes unwarranted attention. This includes when Franz is showing Eugen his hand trick in the restaurant, to belittling Franz for his sister Hedwig's drunken behaviour. Eugen also has a patronising nature in his mocking of Franz's taste in music, as well as the way he eats soup during a family dinner with Eugen's parents. There are plenty of examples that reinforces Eugen as a callous and manipulative individual that, sadly, for those within a relationship with such individuals, these red flags aren't necessarily the easiest to see. Franz himself has his suspicions when talking to Eugen's friend Max in the spa that Eugen may be hiding something. The stress that tolls on Franz is even more clearly apparent when, drunk in his favourite gay bar, Springer's, he tries to defend Eugen's behaviour but becomes visibly very distressed, vulnerable and uncertain of his future. It's as if he is finally seeing Eugen for his true self, without the figurative rose-tinted glasses. Franz continues to give, and Eugen continues to take. While the manipulation is financial and emotional rather than physical, Eugen's behaviour towards Franz would easily count as abusive, using his power over Franz until Franz feels truly broken and alone. Max almost serves as a stand-in for the audience's own empathy towards Franz. He tries to warn Franz of the clear games that Eugen is playing, but there isn't much that he can do. While hardships of Franz's relationship and love life might not specifically reflect the viewer's own personal experiences, what Franz's struggle reflects is the difficulty that some queer people can face in their search for love, the necessity for discretion, whether it's due to safety concerns in a new location, such as Franz and Eugen's intention of hooking up with a Moroccan man on their vacation to Marrakesh, or simply for avoiding unwanted attention, such as men flirting with other men within the gay bar, knowing it's a safe space away from prejudice, or when Franz and Max initially meet for a hookup away from the public eye. The portrayal of discretion within Fox and His Friends can still reflect modern-day queerness due to some locations, circumstances, and countries being unsafe places for LGBTQ LGBTQ+ people, making it difficult to be open, living as one's true self. This may make Franz even more sympathetic, because while he is clearly openly gay in Germany, the impression is given that he is desperate to make the relationship work with Eugen, hence his constant financial giving and support. He does it in his striving for a true love. It may be a mixture of desperation in seeking a man who accepts him, and vulnerability in that Eugen appeals to Franz's naivety, only to later belittle and gaslight him. But Franz is not to be blamed for his need to be loved. Unfortunately, in his striving for true love, he is led down into a pit of despair. The stereotype of queer drama ending in tragedy is certainly reinforced with Fox and his friends. Franz wishes to end things with Eugen, admitting he doesn't appreciate being belittled, and Eugen agrees, but due to Franz signing the apartment away in Eugen's name, as well as the 100,000 Deutschmark loan he gave Eugen to help keep his father's business afloat, Franz is broken toneless, and Eugen does not intend to help whatsoever. Franz, frustrated and after a heated barrage of insults from his sister Hedwig, overdoses on his medication and dies, robbed on the subway station floor for his last few Deutschmarks. As Max passes by and recognises the body, he poignantly observes that there is no helping Franz now. A man down on his luck due to losing his fairground sideshow job, receiving the financial gains of a winning lottery ticket only to become down on his luck once again, has now truly sunk underneath the waters of despair. It's a devastating conclusion which depicts one situation on the extreme end of the spectrum of manipulative abuse, and while Fox and his friends does reinforce the stereotype of queer dramas that they tend to end in tragedy, Fox and his friends earns its tragedy by creating a genuine sense of empathy towards its flawed, troubled, yet generous and once optimistic protagonist. His tragic experience demonstrating the need to combat abuse within relationships, whether the abuse is physical, mental, emotional, or financial. In conclusion, Rainer Werner Fassbinder's Fox and His Friends is a realist, empathetic depiction of the despair of an emotional abuse victim within a cis-gay relationship, while also portraying the need for discretion, which many queer people can still rely on in locations where being openly queer can be unsafe. Tender, dark, and sometimes amusing, Fox and His Friends demonstrates the safety of vulnerable queer people in abusive relationships is a necessity. A special thank you to my super Patreon supporters Gil, Konstantin Bombelli, and Victoria.